Now, it's a big day for Prince Andrew, as a judge in New York will decide whether the sexual assault case against him will, in fact, go ahead. Now, this all comes after legal papers were released yesterday, which could leave the Prince in the clear. With me now, royal editor Russell Myers and columnist Susie Boniface, who writes under the name Fleet Street Fox. Well, Russell, again, as we said, all over the front Platinum Jubilee, it's, there's all sorts of things planned.
Well, it's D-Day for Andrew, essentially, today, and today is a very important court day. In New York, the judge, Lewis Kaplan, will listen for the final time to both the prosecution and the defence's case. So, the prosecution being Virginia Giuffre, who was accusing the Duke of York of sexually assaulting her over 3 occasions in 2001. Prince Andrew defending himself. He has denied all these allegations that are in front of him. But this will be the final time where the judge decides whether or not this goes to trial. And the reason that it's become more of a big case in the last 24 hours is because the judge decided that a financial settlement that was agreed between Virginia Giuffre and the late disgraced paedophile Jeffrey Epstein back in 2009 was made public. And the reason that was because Prince Andrew believes that he will be part of that settlement, essentially, that it will get him out of jail card, essentially, to not face trial. And the agreement that was reached was a $500,000 settlement, which said that anyone that may have been a potential defendant in a case connected to Jeffrey Epstein was essentially not included in any future case. Now, the Duke of York and his team believe that he could be classed as a potential defendant in this case. So the wording is not clear-cut by any means. So it decides determines what side of the fence you're on, what interpretation you have of it, I suppose. It's
very interesting, isn't it? Susie, I just wonder, do you think he's going to be sweating, or is he going to be celebrating by the fact that we now know that effectively she was paid off? They tried to shut her up, didn't they?
He did, yes, and Virginia is one of dozens of young women who brought those sort of private claims against Jeffrey Epstein back in 2009 after he was initially convicted for procuring a minor for prostitution, and who he settled the cases with. But what he's doing here, unfortunately, is a technicality for Andrew. It might get him off, but it also means that he has to very squarely place himself alongside Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, a convicted paedophile and a convicted sex trafficker, as being a potential defendant in the words of this agreement. And that means that, he's putting himself in the same kind of area, if you like, insofar as the court of public opinion is concerned, as someone who was a convicted paedophile and who did have to pay off their victims. It's not I almost feel sorry for Andrew, because there's pretty much nothing he can do with Virginia's case to completely exonerate himself. Virginia's case could be thrown out this afternoon. She could be said by the judge to be a complete liar. Andrew could have everything go in his favour. And as far as the court of public opinion is concerned, he's still friends with a convicted paedophile. He's still friends with a convicted sex trafficker. He was still introduced by them to young women. They were still victims of abuse. And he still brought the royal family into serious disrepute. So it's difficult to see the way forward for Andrew from this, really, no matter how it goes.
It's very interesting you say that, because obviously, Russell, it's the start of the year. It's supposed to be the start of a big year for the Queen. It's the Platinum Jubilee. It's, there's all sorts of things planned. And then always it seems to be something happens as far as Prince Andrew's concerned to take the shine off it. Well,
let's not forget he was the master of his own demise in all of this. In 2019, we've been talking about this for such a long time. He gave that catastrophic BBC Newsnight interview, and I think that Susie talks about the court of public opinion. If he'd have gone onto that show and been completely contrite and said, listen, I made a mistake by associating with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell or whoever, and apologised for his previous misdemeanours, then there may have been some leeway. But it was because of his attitude. His arrogance, absolutely. And unfortunately, he has found himself in this position. And again, the wall of silence that he has put up throughout this civil case that Virginia Giuffre has brought, I don't think has done him any favours whatsoever. So we will wait to see what the judge says. I imagine we will get a decision in the coming days. And a trial, the judge has already said if that trial is scheduled, it will be heard in the autumn. So with the Platinum Jubilee year, it will unfortunately overshadow it, I'm sure.
And Susie, I think as well, it's interesting, isn't it, that, you know, the whole Ghislaine Maxwell thing, you know, people are wondering, will she actually say something? She hasn't said anything, she didn't do any sort of plea bargaining before. Is she likely to say anything now?
If I were Ghislaine Maxwell, I'd be using any famous friends that I still had to make my possible 65 years in jail a bit nicer. I doubt whether Prince Andrew is going to be one of those who could influence significantly her term in jail, and they're supposed to be planning an appeal anyway. I think for Andrew, one of the bigger problems that is facing him imminently is that at the moment, you know, as the second son of the Queen, he's being quite protected by the institution of Buckingham Palace and the royal family. His titles, his roles at the Grenadier Guards and so on are all being protected. But what happens when he's only the brother of the monarch or the uncle of the monarch? Will Charles and William, when they are heads of the royal family, will they want to protect it in the same way that the Queen is protecting it? Or will they see some different way forward for the royal family that they want to mould and make it look a bit different in the future?
It is fascinating, isn't it? I mean, looking back at that 2019 interview, just astonishing, the whole thing about not sweating, the whole thing about going to a Pizza Express in Woking and nobody remembering it, really. Listen, I saw Demelza, you know the original Demelza? Anne Carried Reid's.
Yeah.
I saw her 35 years ago at Heathrow Airport and I've never forgotten it to this day. And I think if I'd been sitting having a margarita, I would remember if there was, you know, a member of the royal family, or indeed if I'd served him. The whole thing is just, don't you find it utterly bizarre?
It is, but it's nowhere near still quite as bizarre as the idea that when someone you apparently don't know very well but have holidayed with is convicted of soliciting a minor under the age of 18 and serves 13 months jail time for it, and then is released on house arrest while paying off dozens of young girls who have come forward with their accusations, that you then fly 4,000 miles to tell him you can't see him anymore the year after all that happens and attend parties with him. I mean, that's, like Russell said, the architect of his own destruction. That's the central, arrogant, bizarre, not able to see the way that the rest of the world would do it problem behind all this. Had he done in 2010 the sensible, reasonable thing we'd all have done, which is pick up the phone, or even not pick up the phone and not speak to this guy anymore, we wouldn't be where we are. Yeah, it's just the idea that he should be able to do it and he can do it and no one can stop him doing it, which is causing all of these problems.
No, it is. Susie, thank you very much indeed. And Russell, there's no way back for him, surely.
No, not at all. I think anyone at the Palace would have the same opinion that there is absolutely no way back for him, and he's probably the only person on this planet who thinks that he's got a chance. However, it's he still may get off going to trial, but I think his reputation is absolutely in the gutter.
Yeah, we should say he's always denied any charges. He always has. He always has. He's looming over us there. I'm kind of slightly concerned about that, but never mind. That's very strange. Russell, thank you very much. Don't forget, you can watch full episodes of Lorraine on the ITV Hub and all the best clips, compilations and playlists right here on our channel. Just subscribe now and you'll never miss an upload. Click here to watch another video similar to this one, or click here to head to our channel's homepage to explore all of our exciting videos.